So picture this. It was a perfect Saturday, the kind that makes you grateful you own a lawn. And I swear to you, the universe decided to test me. The sun was hanging in the sky like it had the day off. Neighbors were sprawled in lawn chairs, and my garage door was wide open because why bother with formality when the whole block's invited? We do our annual garage get-together every year. Ribs on the smoker, a cooler that could drown a small village, cornhole boards, clattering kids running in circles, music low enough to be friendly rather than invasive. Living in an HOA neighborhood is like subscribing to a newsletter you didn't ask for, full of side eyes and passive-aggressive verses. And in our little chapter, the president of that newsletter is Karen. You know, the type clipboard permanently glued to her hand, a radar for lawn height discrepancies, and a face that makes you wonder if sunlight gives her a paper cut. She keeps a ruler for my grass, and once sent me an earnest 3-page complaint about a garden gnome being inappropriately cheerful, so you can imagine the kind of satisfaction she gets when she spots any deviation from her version of order. An hour into the afternoon, ribs coming off the grill in that slow, proud way that makes everyone temporarily civilized. Karen makes her move. She storms across the street like she's got a mission from some HOA oracle, plants herself at the edge of my driveway with arms folded, and announces loud enough to cleave through our playlist that we're violating HOA Bylaws Section C, Paragraph 4, unauthorized social gatherings, as if the rule book were a holy text she's sworn to uphold. I step over, hands open, trying to keep the friendly tone. "Hey, Karen, it's just a few friends over for a barbecue. We turn the music down." She scoffs. Loud is subjective, she declares, and then launches into the sort of soliloquy only a neighbor with a clipboard can compose: the smell of smoked meats invading her home, the affront of too many parked cars, the erosion of neighborhood decency. My buddy Dave, bless him, tries to diffuse the scene with humor. "We can scoot the cars down if you want." But Karen isn't here to negotiate. She gives us 10 minutes to disperse, or she'll be forced to take further action. It's the kind of ultimatum people hand out when the law is a club they like to swing. The rest of us just exchange looks and turn the music down one notch out of courtesy, assuming that will be the end of it. How naive I was. 20 minutes later, we're elbow deep in watermelon. Someone's telling a story about a cornhole miracle when blue and red lights splash across the siding like confetti from a bureaucratic parade. A police cruiser eases into the driveway like it's arrived at the wrong wedding. The yard gets quiet, not polite quiet, the kind of silence you get when everyone realizes they're in a small-town production and the next line might involve an arrest. Karen stands on her porch, arms crossed, triumphant. She looks like she's waiting for a ribbon to be cut in her name. 2 officers step out, professional, but tired, the kind who can tell the difference between a real emergency and an afternoon HOA spectacle. One of them approaches me. "Sir, we received a complaint about excessive noise." He takes in folding chairs, a half-eaten plate of ribs, a cooler doing its job. "We'll check it out," he says, like a referee being asked to judge a picnic. "Officer, sorry if we were a nuisance. We turned the music down." I offer, keeping my tone neutral. From her porch, Karen hollers about moral decay and civic responsibility, the kind of rhetoric that sounds righteous until you realize it's mostly the sound of someone defending their own comfort. The officer asks who the homeowner is. That's me. And just then, a guy named Mike, unassuming, friendly, new to town, stands up from a lawn chair, wipes his hands on a napkin, and strolls over. "Everything all right, officers?" Mike asks, like this is a routine check on the grill rather than the start of a neighborhood drama. The younger officer's eyes go wide. His posture shifts in an instant, like someone discovering a new law of physics. "Chief," he says, voice doing that flip that takes a sentence from casual to official. Mike smiles modestly, not waving the title around like a banner. He looks at our subdued gathering, the kids who stopped mid-run, the neighbors shifting in their seats, and he says, "Doesn't look too out of control to me. Looks like a standard Saturday barbecue. Ribs smell excellent, by the way." He winks at me like we're in on a private joke. You could watch Karen deflate. Her smug satisfaction evaporates, replaced by the exact expression people get when their context gets taken away. "Mike, Chief." Mike, now announced by the officer, steps forward so everyone can hear him. "Officers, I've been here for over 2 hours. The volume is respectful and there's no public disturbance. This sounds like a misuse of resources." The neighborhood leaned in. People who'd been half embarrassed to be the subject of a complaint now smiled with guilty relief. There's a particular hush that happens when an authority figure uses their discretion to restore normalcy, the kind of hush that feels like a collective apology to the afternoon. Karen, who had been savoring her role as enforcer of etiquette, looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. She shuffled back inside and slammed the door with all the drama of someone who'd lost an audience. The officers apologized, professional and slightly sheepish, and the cruiser rolled away. The instant their taillights disappeared, the yard erupted laughter, clapping, the kind of communal whoop you hear when a play ends and the audience decides to applaud real life. People patted Mike on the back like he'd performed a small miracle. He shrugged, laughed, and said, "I don't usually bring work to backyard barbecues, tends to make things weird." Dave hollered, "Chief, you in for a rematch?" And cornhole resumed like nothing had happened, as if the universe had a good sense of timing and a soft spot for thrown beanbags. People lingered in the driveway in little clusters, half swaying from the heat, half still from the adrenaline. Conversation picked up in uneven bursts, jokes about Dave's cornhole form, compliments aimed at the ribs, a few conspiratorial whispers about Karen's history of being the neighborhood's self-appointed bylaw czar. Someone told the story about the time she measured Mrs. Alvarez's hydrangeas with a level and left a note that read more like a citation than a neighborly suggestion. There were groans and eye rolls, but also an undercurrent of tenderness, the kind towns have toward one another's foibles. Mike stayed for maybe another 15 minutes, talking to people like any good neighbor would, accepting congratulations with a bemused grin. At one point, he wandered by, the smoker tasted a bit of sauce and made a small theatrical show of declaring the ribs officially excellent. It was mundane and heroic at once, the quiet dignity of someone who chose not to make a spectacle of his position. Let the day resolve itself without anyone needing to keep score. A reminder that sometimes the presence of authority is most effective when it is gentle and unassuming. That's the surface story, neighbor complains. Police arrive, chief saves the barbecue, and yeah, it's a tidy little tale with a satisfying twist. But later that evening, when the grill was coaling down and the street smelled like wet charcoal and sugar, I walked out and stared at my garden gnome, who somehow looked even cheerier than usual. I thought about how fast the rules can become a tool, how a bylaw can be waved like a flag, not to protect safety, but to protect comfort. Karen wasn't arguing about noise because the noise hurt her. She was defending a version of the world where everything looked just so and control made her feel safe. If there's a lesson here, not shouted from a soapbox, but the kind you notice like a taste in your mouth, it's this: power without perspective is just posture. Rules matter, sure, but context matters more. When someone leaps to enforce, ask why. Are they defending the common good, or are they defending the edges of their comfort? Are they trying to keep people safe or trying to keep things small enough that nothing disturbs them? The texture of intention matters more than the neatness of the paperwork. We closed with chairs folded and stories swapped, the kind of night where people walk a little slower because they've just been reminded of what makes a block a neighborhood. The gnome sits on my stoop like a sentinel of ridiculous cheer, and I couldn't help but laugh, partly because the day felt vindicated, and partly because there is a simple pleasure in seeing petty enforcement met with quiet human common sense. That feeling, sweet as the rib glaze, is the satisfying part, a little karma, not violent or cruel, just the universe nudging back. So chew on this and tell me what you think. Not a lecture, just a prompt for conversation. When someone uses rules to police joy, are they protecting the community or protecting their control? Is calling the police on a barbecue an act of civic duty or an abuse of power dressed as responsibility? Where do you draw the line between keeping order and policing life? If you've got a wild neighbor story, a petty HOA crusade, a ridiculous complaint, or a time karma, served up a satisfying slice of justice, drop it in the comments. Tell me, were we right to laugh, or is there a deeper lesson we missed about responsibility and community? Share your take. Hit. Like, if this made you grin, and pass it to someone who needs reminding that sometimes, just sometimes, the smell of ribs is worth defending.